very happy new year to all you wonderful people of Goa. I, Gaurapriya Atul Pai Kane, Ehsaas Women of Goa, welcome you all to a very special evening, the Right Circle. Goa, the pearl of the Orient, is known not only for its scenic beauty, but also its rich cultural heritage that effortlessly blends history, literature, and vibrant modernity. The city also boasts a long and illustrious history that dates back centuries, which makes it a treasure trove for literature enthusiasts. It has produced some great writers like Lakshman Rao Sardesai, R.V. Pandit, Shanoy Goibab, and Ravindra Kedekar, amongst many more. The Right Circle is a platform organized by Prabha Khaitan Foundation under many of its literature initiatives. It is birthed to bring together authors and readership of English literature and language in a close, engaging, and informal setting. The sessions are structured around the life and work of the author, followed by interaction with the audiences. The Right Circle started from Jaipur and now has conducted sessions across India and overseas. Today we have a personality who requires no introduction and whose work speaks volumes. We're really, really honored to have you amongst us, Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai. Thank you. And to start our new year with your event is really amazing. But before we dive into the much-awaited evening, let me just give a couple of minutes to talk about PKF, Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a non-profitable trust committed to humanitarian and social cultural causes. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan established it as a charitable trust in the early 1980s. Based in Kolkata, it is committed to supporting women empowerment, gender equality, literature, culture, children's welfare, social causes, arts, and performing arts. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan was an eminent Indian philanthropist, a social worker, entrepreneur, and a feminist who established the foundation and is embodied in a famous words, Karm hi Jeevan hai, work is life. Charting a glorious 40-year journey, the foundation has gone only from strength to strength by launching many initiatives to further the cause that Dr. Prabha Khaitan has envisaged. PKF organizes authors' meets, book launches, literature fest, panel discussions, boutique festivals, and events of performing arts. The foundation curates the best of events to widen the spectrum of languages and literature, be it English, Hindi, or regional. Authors and artists connect with their niche audiences through diversified events like Kalam, Kitab, Ek Mulaqat, Lafz, Sur aur Saaz, Muskaan, Rahat, Karuna, and so on. To create awareness in the community, we uphold one pressing social issue every month. This January, the cause for the month is National Girl Child Day. We are also elated to share the 3-time Grammy Award winner, Ricky Cage, the man behind the signature collar tune of Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Now the introduction to the star author for the evening. Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai is an award-winning senior journalist, author, and a TV news presenter. He worked with the Times of India for 6 years after joining it in October 1988 and was the city editor of its Mumbai edition. He entered television journalism in 1994 as political editor of New Delhi Television, NDTV. He was the managing editor of both NDTV 24/7 and NDTV India and was responsible for overseeing the news policies for both. He hosted popular shows like The Big Fight at NDTV. He quit NDTV on 17th April 2005 to start his own company, Global Broadcast News, GBN, in collaboration with the American giant CNN and Raghav Bal's TV18. The new channel, with Sardesai as the editor-in-chief, was named CNN IBN. It went on air on 17 December 2005. In 2014, Reliance Industries Limited acquired control in Network 18 Media, and so Rajdeep Sardesai, along with his entire founding team, resigned from the Network 18 group. Since then, he is the consulting editor with the India Today Group and anchors a primetime show on India Today. Rajdeep has authored and co-authored many multiple books. His books on the last 3 elections, 2014 elections that changed India, 2019 How Modi Won India, and 2024 the elections that surprised India, have garnered good reviews and have best national sellers. He's also the author of Democracy 11, The Great Indian Cricket Story. He is a much felicitated person and have been awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India. The one other connection that we all know is Rajdeep has his roots in Goa, and his father, Rajdeep Sardesai, is the only Goan to have played cricket here for India. Thank you so much for being with us today. In conversation with him, we have our very own Ehsaas Women of Goa, Vaishali Joshi. Vaishali is an alumnus of prestigious BITS Pilani, and after her double masters in physics and management, she dabbled in many professions, including advertising, trading, manufacturing, and teaching marketing. She's founded and the CEO of the V Factor, a brand advisory services company showcasing lifestyle products and services pan-India and overseas. She is a great theater and music enthusiast and has performed live. She's also associated with the Prafulla Dahanukar Art Foundation and the Sadir Theatre Festival and has compared their shows pan-India. She is the founding member and the first Ehsaas Woman of Goa. Over to you, Vaishali. I request you to cross. Thank you.
So good evening. And about 15 years ago, Rajdeep, I brought my daughter, who was then an aspiring journalist, to one of your seminars at, I think, the International Center, Goa. And today I have the privilege of sitting in front of you and in conversation with you. So I think I have to thank the Prabha Khaitan Foundation for this wonderful opportunity. And I must tell you, I'm really elated and excited. So before we begin, talk about the book and everything, I think we'll get to know you a little bit as a person and as a professional, as a journalist professional. Okay?
Those cue cards are worrying me. Isn't like that Karan Johar's whatever he does.
Okay. So you're trained to be a lawyer with a postgraduate degree in law from Oxford, none other than Oxford. And you even began practicing after coming back at the Bombay High Court. You were also selected for the under-19 cricket team. So I'm curious to know, how did journalism happen?
Thank you very much, Vaishali. And first of all, thank you very much for having me here, and namaskar. It's very special always to be in Goa. And I was telling someone, so I have a lot of book events in the next month, but it's nice to start in Goa. It's an auspicious way to start if you can start in your roots. So I still see Goa very much as part of my heritage. So to be at a hotel which is called Heritage makes it even more special.
Yes.
So thank you particularly for having me here. Look, to cut a long story short, frankly, I should have been a lawyer. That was what I was trained to do, and that is what I had started off. It just so happened that at that particular moment in time, I had reached a stage where I just finished my law degree, and somehow Mumbai High Court seemed very, very intimidating. Don't ask me why. I was working with a company called Crawford Bailey, and corporate law was only, just about emerging. This is pre-1991, this is 1988. So there wasn't, the idea of corporate law didn't seem to excite me. Cricket, frankly, is pure merit, and I was not good enough. I've always said my father had talent, I had none. And you have to be blessed by the gods to play cricket or do music. These are special things in life. And I remember playing a match against Pakistan for combined universities and being bowled for 1. And as I was leaving, Salim Malik, who was the Pakistani player, turns to me, yaar tu India se aata aur spin bowling nahi khelna janta. I had been bowled by Abdul Qadir for 1. And that's when I decided I had to do something else in my life. Cricket, 11 players can play for India, and you have to be talented. Just because your father played is no reason for you to play. My father would always tell me, I can't go on the field and score runs. Runs you will have to make. And am I going to push you if you're not good enough. In fact, once when he was a selector, he recused himself and told the other selectors, please don't pick my son, he's not good enough. So that was him, and that's the way he was. So, it wasn't easy. So cricket never sort of really took off, even though I played under 19 and captain schoolboys and all that. But I've always also said that if you fail in everything else in life, there is journalism. Because then you see what is there. You can always talk about other people's lives, their achievements, and derive vicarious pleasure out of it. And in a way, that's what happened. Because while I used to write a bit from Oxford for the Times of India, when I came back, the editors there were very kind enough to say I wrote rather well. Why don't you, pursue this career? And I was obsessed with current affairs, I must say. I mean, I loved news. I remember 1976, when there was a US election, rushing to USIS to watch Gerald Ford and Jimmy Carter, who passed away the other day. And 1977, when Indira Gandhi lost, I remember telling the whole school about how Indira Gandhi had lost, what had happened in Raebareli. And I guess, so there is that Kida was there. But at the end of the day, journalism doesn't require the kind of, honestly, that kind of effort that law does. So I took the shortcut in life.
I don't think of the shortcut.
No, it's the shortcut in life. I'm being honest.
You're being modest.
No, that's the Goinkar in me. You see, the Goinkar in me says, if there are two roads that we have to take, we try and take more often than not the easier.
Okay, so that's how you got into journalism.
Yeah.
And 6 years into print journalism, you transitioned into television. And I've heard an interview of yours where you said that you were in the right place at the right time. And if I may say so, you also said that if you had stayed in print, you'd probably have just been a byline, where you said by a staff reporter, but because of television, you also got a lot of exposure. So was this a conscious decision? Because you've also said that you like to reinvent yourself every few years.
Yes, I'll tell you this. My wife is here, Sagrika, and I still remember we were driving back. We were married less than a year, 6-7 months, and I told her, I've decided I'm not doing this print anymore. I'm joining TV. I've got this offer from New Delhi Television. And her first reaction was, how can you do that? Who's going to watch TV? Because in those days, all that we had on TV was Doordarshan. So everybody's sort of mind of TV was tuned to what Doordarshan showed on TV. She was dead against it. And I'm glad that I didn't follow her instructions. You see, whenever I've not followed her instructions, I haven't done too badly. Normally I do, she runs the house. But the fact is, on that occasion, and in those days, honestly, it was just an opportunity. I thought I had no idea what television would do. We were doing one half-an-hour program called Tonight on Doordarshan in 94. Today, India has 424/7 news channels.
That's amazing.
So we were just there at the right. People ask how come you all got recognition so easily. The simple answer: there were fewer channels. You had no option but to watch us. I still remember 96 Lok Sabha election. Those elections went on for 3 days, the counting, and we were doing it for Doordarshan. Just think about it: 100% TRPs. Nobody else was there. From first day to the last day, everybody had to watch us. So suddenly we became, recognized faces. So we were lucky. That's why I said we were there at the right place at the right time. I think that is life. I say it about politicians also. Sometimes you just have to be at the right place at the right time in politics. And who knows where life takes you. So that's true about most things in life. And I think that happened with television. We went into it with no idea what it would be. But in those 10 years, television became very, very big in India.
Right. Well, I'm very glad you took that plunge. Sagarika, sorry.
No, and she was in print, and she used to, say that, there was this feeling that that print is the so-called, if I may use the word, upper caste.
Oh.
That if you were the serious, the print was the serious journalist. And TV were people, just putting themselves on camera.
And how things have changed.
How things have changed? Well, in a way they have. I still miss print. I mean, my Pehla Pyar is still writing an article or writing a book. But TV gives you a lot of visibility. You cannot deny that.
In an interview, you once said that moving from Mumbai to Delhi was quite a challenge. And it was actually quite a earth-shattering kind of an event for you. And you felt your Hindi being a Mumbai boy or Bombay at that time, was not good enough to take on assignments in Uttar Pradesh or Bihar. And then later on, you went live on Aaj Tak in Hindi. Would you like to share something about that?
My Hindi is better than Rahul Gandhi's. and Rahul Gandhi lived all his life in Delhi. Look, Anu supports the Congress, so that's okay. Look, I'm not saying. All I'm saying is I made a genuine effort. I realized that if you have to be in Delhi, you have to learn Hindi. You have to work at it. And I'm glad to say I do a weekly program called Neta Nagari on London Talk. And we get huge, this is the new digital world, of course, but it's pure Hindi. And it's exciting. I meet new audiences. I think whatever you do in life, if you try and work at it, my Hindi is still partly Bombaya. There are some long words that I find difficult, but I can give a speech in Hindi now. I worked at it for 20 years, and I was surrounded by Hindi speakers. I think once you're in North India, and I think Maharashtrians have this problem. When we come to Delhi, we complain about the cold, we complain about, we are not comfortable with Delhi. I've seen Maharashtra politicians also in Delhi. They struggle because they want their Maharashtrian food. They want everything in Delhi like they get in Mumbai. It won't happen. Sorry? No, not even vada pav, just generally. But I think somehow Delhi was very good to me in that sense. But I did make an effort on Hindi. And I still remember interviewing Lalu Prasad the first time in '95. I was struggling. Because, his Hindi was also with the Bihari accent. And I'm sort of virtually using lots of Bombaya words. I didn't know the difference between tum and aap, which is a very important thing. When do you say tum and when do you say aap? These are all important things in North India. But I've made an effort, and I think it's paid off, because I think what has happened in the last 30 years, and that's good, I think, for India. We now have a vernacular elite. Just because you speak English gives you no advantage in any sense in life.
Absolutely.
And I think that's good for this country. I think you should know both languages. I think that you should know. I feel bad that I can't speak Konkani. If I stay 5 years in Goa, I'll master it. So that's the next goal. One day to master
Take less
it.
time.
And my Marathis, I do Marathi shows also now. But and I miss doing Marathi because nobody in Goa, nobody in Delhi, I don't have anyone in my newsroom who speaks Marathi. Not one. The newsrooms are dominated by Bengalis, Keralites, and North Indians.
Oh, really?
But in general, I would say learning Hindi today is a huge advantage. All the ministers today, most of them, their first language is Hindi. And that's the big difference between the Delhi that I went to in the Congress rule. In Congress rule, most of the ministers, their first language was English. I wouldn't say first language, but they were very comfortable in English. Today's BJP leaders are not comfortable in English and happy to speak in Hindi. And I think that's good. I have no problem with that.
I watched you on London Top, and I think you speak very good Hindi. Really.
And now you're being very kind.
I think the audience can go back today and maybe just Google on YouTube and watch him. He's really good. Now, I'm not saying this because you're my guest today, but I mean it. So law is considered the starting point for an entry into politics. But you started off as a political editor with NDTV. Were you familiar with the entire political ecosystem, and what has the learning been like? And how did you sort of once you made the shift from print into the visual media, and at the time when it was really very nascent? It must have opened up a completely different set of opportunities, and the entire system must have been different. So, can we hear something about that?
I'll come back to my first story with Lalu Prasad. I still remember, I was a South Mumbai boy, English speaking, convent educated, and Lalu Prasad wins this 95 election. It was the second or third time I had met him, but that 95 election I remember. His secretary tells me, "Saab ne aapko 11 baje bulaya." So I go promptly at 11 a.m. in the morning. Nobody is there in the house. I said, "Where is? Oh, साहब ने आपको 11 बजे रात को बुलाया." I said, "ठीक है." रात को he's celebrating. He just won an election. 11 becomes 12. Then he takes me. So we've set up our cameras and all in his bungalow. Nice, beautiful background. Somebody comes there and says, "अरे यहाँ नहीं होगा." तो सर फिर कहाँ होगा? साहब आपको बताएंगे. So Lalu comes in and says, "यहाँ नहीं, आप मेरे घर के पीछे चलिए." So we go behind was the cow shed. So he said, yahan interview hoga. So interview, and Lalu was clever, much like Modi is. You see, these are clever politicians, understand how to use the camera. So he said that in the background, while the interview was there, he wanted cows there. Okay, now that's part of it. He wants to show that he's comes from a cow herd family. Then tells me, I first want you to learn how to milk a cow. आप लोग ये मुंबई से आते हैं, आपको पहले ये तो सीखना चाहिए. So there I am, instead of interviewing him at midnight, learning how to milk a cow. And honestly, it was a learning in life. And we were surrounded by all his people. They were laughing away. I mean, North India has thrown up all kinds of, and sometimes it gets you into trouble. Like in this election, I went to meet this Brij Bhushan Saran Singh, this head of the Wrestling Federation of India, who's been accused of sexual harassment and worse. Now he's a dabang, he's a real sort of. So I go early in the morning. I'm surrounded by his people and by his gundas. You want to call them whatever, and he's a very warm, generous person in personal. He insisted I have watermelon juice with him, this, that. All that is over, interview is over. At the end, my producer told me, sir, we need to have, and this is the problem with the new generation, we need something for Instagram. I said, for Instagram, what do I do? So he makes me arm wrestle with him. Now, Bhushan is a big guy. And I put that picture of me arm wrestling with, or doing an arm wrestle on Twitter. Next thing I know, and rightly so, all these women activists sending me, bombarding me. What kind of a person are you? You're arm wrestling with someone who's accused of sexual harassment. I had gone to interview him, not as you're right, I had gone to interview him not for any other reason, but I wanted news out of him. So nobody wanted to see the interview. They only wanted to see the picture of me arm wrestling with him. And I realized that in today's world, you have to be very sensitive to what, how you sort of communicate now. 20 years ago, you could get away with, with doing what you wanted with the Lalu Prasad. Absolutely. So that's the change that I've seen. But it's been fun. I mean, the thing is, politicians are, and there are some in this room, they are real characters. Each one of them. It is the most difficult thing in the world to do is politics. Honestly, it's very easy for us to sit on the outside, but to be a politician, I don't know how Vijay does it. And in being in Goa, even more difficult. Goa politicians and their somersaults and their trapeze acts, I mean, they would win the Olympic gold for certain, in gymnastics or whatever. But the fact is that they are remarkable people also. I mean, they are communicating, and there is no sense of privacy. The really good politicians have no sense of privacy. They are 24/7. I remember once Mamata Banerjee ringing me up at 3 a.m. in the morning to say that your channel is showing something wrong on the ticker. I said, madam, it is 3 a.m. I cannot change it. Nobody is there. No, why? Somebody should be in your office. I said, madam, 3 a.m. nothing can be done. But that means she was awake at 3 a.m. I mean, that I think is something that has stood out for me about politicians. But they are interesting people. I think the more interesting politicians were in the earlier generation. Today's politicians are too sensitive. They lack some of the spirit of the earlier generation, I think. I mean, earlier generation politicians were a bit like Lalu Prasad. Camera was their friend, and they knew how to use the camera also.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be wrong if I say that Lalu had learned the importance of optics right at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first politicians I remember interviewing, I was in Times of India in those days, so it was not on TV, was Bal Thackeray. Bal Thackeray had this larger-than-life image in those days in Mumbai, that one word from Bal Thackeray, Mumbai band kar dega. My dad knew him, so there was a bit of that. And I had done an article about how the Shiv Sena had dug up a cricket pitch, and this was unacceptable. And he was very angry. So I went to meet him with this sort of, his guy called me, "Oh, Saab, bahut gussa hai aapse." So I said, okay. And I spoke to him in Marathi immediately. He had first put the entire room in darkness. So I said, "Oh, Saab bula rahe," so I went in darkness. And those people who come out of a ghost, he said, "Hello." And I said, "Yes." Then he says, "Me tumchavar khub ragolay." I said, "But you all did it wrong. It was the wrong thing to do to dig up a pit." And they said, "ठीक है, but तू दिलीपचा मुलगा आहे ना आणि तू माझ्यावर असं बोल." I said, "Sir, now let us not go into any of that. And the next thing I know, he said, okay, after having sort of vented at me for 5 minutes, suddenly he says, will you have a warm beer?
Oh.
So I said, sir, I have chilled beer. He said, no, you must have warm beer, much better. So I said, whatever you want. So, you know, in those days, politicians, Bal Thackeray himself, once in a TV show later in life in 2004, happily insisted on having red wine. And red, I think he had white or he had moved to red wine. And the fact was that he was ready to do that on camera. Today's politicians will be very conscious, please don't show the wine glass on camera. But Thackeray came from another era. I think the politicians of that era were more open in the way they practiced their politics.
I think you're absolutely right. I think competition should normally raise the bar. And you were just saying that there are how many TV
400,
channels? 400 TV channels. But in a strange way, in television, because of all this competition, I think what's happened is that it's actually brought us down to the lowest common denominator. Would you like to tell us why that's happened? I mean, do you agree with me, first of all? And if you do, would you like to tell us why it's happened?
No, you're absolutely right. It has become a circus, and we are the clowns in the circus, frankly. I think there is a serious problem. You see, it is because the business model is such now that you want a low-cost model of television. Now, low-cost means what? Get 4 people to shout at each other in a TV studio. The earlier model, you went to the field, you actually met people. Suppose Manipur was burning, you would spend time in Manipur. Today, you can talk about Manipur in a TV studio. And it's not just in India, it's happening across the world. I mean, look at the way the US elections are fought. I mean, it's not as if the US journalists are doing some exceptional work. On TV in particular. They too are having these sort of cockfights in a TV studio. It's become, it's the low-cost model of doing television. And part of the problem is also viewers, if I may be allowed to say so. Viewers are also very happy to sometimes see these shouting matches. You see, they seem to, attract far greater rating. It's like a street that you go which is quiet. Nobody comes to, on a quiet street. But the moment I get a crowd in a fight, you enjoy seeing the fight. So I think there's something intrinsically wrong with the model of TV. Part of the reason is also the business model. You see, CNN gets 60% of its revenues through advertising, through subscription, 40% through advertising. In India, 95% of revenues are advertising, out of which government is a major advertiser, and 5% through subscription. How will you criticize the government if the government is your main advertiser? The entire advertising model is also, why do we not have subscription? The cable operator today, I don't know what the rates are in Panjim. For example, for 800 rupees, you are getting 500 channels. That is 1 rupee a channel. And even if by 50 rupees the price is raised by the cable operator, my mother would ring me up. How is he raised it by 50 rupees? You must ring him up. So if you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. You see, we are not willing to pay for news. You have to pay. Across the world, the best news, New York Times has a subscription. New York Times makes more money from subscription than they make from giving the New York Times at your door. In India, you are buying, I don't know how much Times of India costs in Goa. 2 rupees? 5 rupees? 5 rupees. 5 rupees is low. It should be 20 rupees. Because that is the real price of the newspaper. But you're not willing to actually put that money out there. So you will get the kind of rubbish that you get in a newspaper or the rubbish that you're getting on TV. So there is a problem. But I am not so worried about that. My bigger worry about news is when news spreads this Hindu-Muslim hatred. That is where news is playing the real dangerous role in our lives. I mean, I've told people this. One day we will start a communal riot in a TV studio. You will pit some Muslim Maulvi and a Hindu Pandit, they'll fight with each other and it spills onto the streets. It happened in Kanpur, I think last year or year before last. That is the real danger. Otherwise, what do you do if this is the model that you're going to have? I call it the Ravan school of journalism. One day you will have 100 heads on a TV screen, all shouting at each other.
In fact, I think the print run by Shekhar Gupta, every single program and every single anchor always begins the show, you must have noticed, by asking for subscription. In fact, they always start by asking for subscription and saying that if you've already taken a subscription, then please top it up. So
Now Indians don't want to pay for news. We are ready to pay for a hamburger. You know, McDonald's hamburger costs what? 300 rupees? 400 rupees? 250. 200 rupees. Now, why can't you pay 50 rupees for a good news channel? You won't.
moving on, you know, in 2002, when you interviewed Mr. Modi, you were accosted later when you came back by a mob who broke the windshield of your car with a pickaxe. That's one incident. Another incident that I have read about is that sedition charges were brought against you, and you say that in your latest book. And Sagarika and your daughter Tarini, if I'm not mistaken, I think they asked you to leave to go, you know, to another city, which you refused to do, and you just moved to another place. So has this been the toughest part of your work? I mean, have these been the most, you know, horrible moments of your journey, or you can think of, I mean, is there anything else?
I think that one incident in Gujarat in 2002, which was 2 kilometers away from the Chief Minister's residence, on a dark street in Gandhinagar, where the mob stopped the car, the windshield is broken, and I mean, I don't know whether I should say this to this audience. I've said it in my book, so it's not as if it's some, asked us to put down our trousers, because they wanted to find out if we were circumcised or not, because that was going to be the basis of deciding whether you're a Hindu or Muslim. My driver was a Muslim, and I am circumcised. So I decided that sometimes attack is the best form of defense. So fortunately, we had just interviewed the Chief Minister. So my cameraman was rather, he was alert. He said, "Aap kaun hote hain, ye sab karne?" He showed the camera, "Dekho, humne abhi Chief Minister ka interview kiya hai." It took them a while to accept that. But I just worried. It's the one moment in life where I thought, it was a bit traumatic, and it sort of, I think, affected more than me. I think it affected that poor driver, who I don't think ever could have fully recovered from what he had been through. And then you think, forget us, we survived, we are TV journalists, we could throw the Chief Minister's name. Think about someone else who had been on that same road and had been killed, and there were people who were killed. So I mean, I think that was traumatic. Sedition, I had reported wrongly on a farmer's death in the farm protests. I accept responsibility, but I was not guilty of sedition. And the same FIR was filed in 6 different BJP ruled states. So it was obvious one person had filed the same FIR and wanted you to go to all 6 states. So I eventually ended up, fortunately the charges are now stayed. But that's okay. That again, it's very easy for me today to say, I don't want to feel sorry for myself for that. I felt sorry, and I write about it in the book. A young girl called Disha Ravi, climate change activist, was put in jail for 1 week. Delhi police going all the way to Bangalore to pick her up, saying that she was part of a toolkit that was spreading violence about the farmers. If you meet her, she's an innocent girl. She had just shared some video that Greta Thunberg, the climate change activist, had said. And I said, "Hum to kahin jail nahi gaye, this girl is smiling, and she's a young girl of 1 week." Or you think of a Siddiq Kapan, a journalist who spent 20 months in jail, charges completely unproven. Think of Kashmiri journalists. There are 5 journalists today who are still in jail. 4 of them are from Kashmir, and they've been in jail for the last 3-4 years. Nobody talks about them, because there is nobody, unki koi sunwai nahi hai. Nobody will speak up for them. And they have they have a Public Safety Act in Kashmir, under which you can be detained for 2 years without a charge sheet or even a trial. Without even you don't need to frame any charges for 2 years. Just pick them up. And these kids are there. So that sedition, that I will manage. Meaning you will live, that is part of life's experiences. In a way, maybe I should have, somebody once told me, "Sir, aap jail jate hain, aap hero ban jate." I keep saying politicians, recently we saw Hemant Soren win an election. One of the reasons Hemant Soren won that election is he went to jail. See, the moment you go to jail, you get sympathy. He became a hero in Jharkhand today. So I'm not saying I want to go through that at all. But I think that experience in Gujarat was far more traumatic than anything that I've gone through in life.
And you were much younger also, I think, at that time. So it must have been even more traumatizing. Probably.
I'm still young.
of course.
I was younger.
I said younger.
Yeah. I was younger. I was 37. But there's a story about that, you know, and I think I mentioned in a recent interview I did with a podcaster. The same incident was related by my friend Arnab Goswami and passed off as his, that he had gone through this trauma. And in any other country, for doing that, you would face huge repercussions. In India, you can get away with plagiarism. And it was very funny. My daughter goes through all these videos on YouTube. She came to me and they were young kids at 5 and 6 and I used to tell them this story. So they came to me about a few years ago saying, Papa, this story, isn't this your story that is being told by him? So I said, yes, but that is life. It surprised me, but that's life. Everybody wants to show how they are brave. So I guess everybody has the right to put this out.
My God, that's really,
But
quite crazy. Yeah.
That's all.
You did work together also, right? At some point, Arnab was with CNN IBN, right?
No, he was with me in NDT. And we were very good friends. We even went to see the World Cup Cricket 2003 together, final. In fact, my father was ill, so I said I will take him. So my father, me, my young son and Anna, 4 of us went to see India lose very badly in the final. In fact, I have decided now not to watch matches because whenever I go, India loses. I just went to see that Melbourne Test also, and India lost. But yeah, but Arnab and I used to do a show together, and I have this great story about, which is a life story. We used to do a show at 10 o'clock in the night called News Hour on NDTV. And in those days, we would have 1 or 2 guests and they would come into the studio. So we were doing a show with 2 guests, one from BJP, one from Congress. From BJP was Vijay Kumar Malhotra, Congress was Rajesh Pilot. Vijay Kumar Malhotra at 8:30 in the evening said, "Mera stomach is not well, मैं नहीं आ सकता." So Arnab told me, we might as well not do the show. What's the point in only having 1 guest? So I said, "Hey, there is one person in Delhi I still know at 8:30 in the night who may still come for this program." So I rang, I know a bit of Gujarati, so I rang up, I said, "Narendra bhai, tamari jarurat hai." This is 8:30 in the night for a 10 p.m. show. So he was a clever man then, he's a clever man now. He says, "Your guest must have dropped out, I am a last minute choice." I said, "Yes sir, that is true, but please come. Don't worry about all that." He said, "But hu to tyar ho, I am staying far away." I said, "Sir, aap taxi le lo, aa jao. Abhi main gaadi nahi bhej sakta wahan." To his credit, he said he thought for 60 seconds and said, "I'm coming." Show is at 10 o'clock. You can imagine the noise levels of a show that Arnab and I are co-entering. But at 9:50 in the night, running into the studio comes Narendra Modi. I cite it as a life story because you never know what tomorrow brings. This was 99-2000. So about 25 years ago, Narendra Modi was ready to come into your studio at 1 hour notice. No problem at all. Today, for the last 10 years, he will keep me, forget about the studio, but very, very far away. But that's life. And good luck to him. And as I keep saying, our careers have followed. I met him first in 1990. But he's here. He's gone from here to here. I've gone from here to here. But that's life. But look, who would have thought that someone like that, who can come to your studio at 1 hour notice, would be a prime minister, 3-time prime minister at the time. If I had known, I would have been even nicer to him than that.
And you said once in an interview that they refused to let you give him the book as well, right? You tried very hard to go and give him the book. I think Hara Modi won India, but they just did not allow you to do that.
But I must be fair to him. When my father passed away, he was among the first people to call me. He and I have had whatever ups and downs, but I think there's a grudging, fact that he knows we know each other a bit. I don't know how to put it. Someone asked me once, "How do you describe this? How do you describe a relationship?" So I said, "There's no relationship. He's a politician." But I've tracked him and I've seen him sort of from 1990 to today. So I think for all the ups and downs, he may not meet me anymore. But in my 2014 book, I write, he used to call me every day, late in the night, to find out how the election was going. And that is 2014, before becoming Prime Minister. So I think there is he knew that Rajdeep would tell him as it is, as is. And from time to time, on his birthday, we have a common friend. through the common friend, I sent him saying, "Saab ko bolna happy birthday," and then I get a message back saying that thank you very much. So we don't know. I mean, life takes you in different directions.
So maybe like they say on Facebook, it's complicated.
It's complicated. That's a good one. It's complicated.
Apart from being a lawyer, print and television journalist, of course, you're an author. Amongst others, as Gaurapriya rightly said, you've written 3 books on politics: The Election That Changed India, How Modi Won India, and the latest in 2024, The Election That Surprised India. Actually, I have copies of all the 3 books here. And I'm just going to show the covers of all the books. This is the first one, The Election That Changed India. Then we have How Modi Won India. And this is his latest book, The Election That Surprised India. Okay, so I have read this book. I must admit I have not read these yet. But I read this book and it made for great reading. I mean, I could really, it just flowed. I think it was a 500-page book, but I think I finished it in about 2.5 days. In fact, my son is sitting here and he was wondering what I was doing all the time in the room sitting and reading the book. But it makes for very good reading. It's like the chronology of, the entire political scene from 2014 to now, even though the book is 2024. I think it's very well chronicled in this and well written. And I should also say that you can also give Shashi Tharoor a run for his money with the vocabulary that he used. Some of the words are really, I had to check in the dictionary.
All the long words have been given to me by my wife.
Okay.
The short words are all mine. But yeah, no, I'll tell you, out of these 3 books, I think this was the toughest to write. And this is, if I may be allowed to say so myself, possibly the boldest out of the 3. I mean, I've been more open in this book than I have been in the other 2. Also, this was a more complicated and complex verdict. Who won? Nobody knows who won this election.
Yeah.
Everybody is claiming they won,
Yeah.
and everybody in a way lost. So it's a strange election. But look, my aim was just to. I hope that 20 years from now, people read and know what happened in this last decade, and particularly the media chapter, which is the last chapter, was a tough one to write because ultimately you are in this media.
Yeah.
And if I call someone Godi media, they will point 4 fingers and say you are Godi media. And I didn't want to get into that battle, but I just wanted to state facts like the NDTV takeover by Adani's. The way a news channel was taken over by Adani and what happened to Prannoy Roy, stopped at the airport, not allowed to leave the country to celebrate his wife's 70th birthday. People of this country must know these things have happened. They cannot, people cannot get away by hiding the truth from the people. And that includes the COVID chapter also. And people must know the kind of decisions that were made during COVID. I mean, I find it astonishing that in this country the government does not tell you how many people died during COVID. WHO says 40 lakh Indians died, official figures are 5 lakhs or 4 lakhs something. I mean, the truth must be told. I mean, if truth telling, so I think this is more truthful than I think all 3 books are truthful. This is perhaps in that sense more direct than the other books. And also there is no Modi, Rahul
No, in
Gandhi.
fact, I was about to come to that. I was going to ask you.
The cover has none of them.
Yeah, the earlier 2 covers have got political figures, but this book has got a young girl, there's a young girl, a young woman, sorry, with a tricolor. So, first of all, I would also like to ask why you've called it The Election That Surprised India. And was this your original choice for the title or it changed?
First of all, I've got a woman on the cover because I think this is the age of women. I see it in this room as well. I don't say it because, you cannot win an Indian election without women. This is a lesson to the politicians. You want to win it, and everyone is competing now for the women vote. Look at what's happening in Delhi.
Yeah.
Everyone is throwing women. Someone is saying 2,000, we'll give you 2,000 rupees a woman, 1,000. You're actually trying to cash for women votes. You're throwing cash. We saw Ladki Bahin in Maharashtra. So I thought a woman is a strong symbol, I believe, of the times in which we are. But was this my original title, Election That Surprised India? Actually, my original title, I thought, if Modi won big, 400 Par, was hat trick. And the other one was capture. This is an election. This is a period of the last decade where you've seen a capture of the Indian state. this is the most dominant force of our times. We haven't seen a more dominant force than the BJP in recent time. Maybe Indira Gandhi in her times, but not since then. So these were the two titles. Then surprise, because trust me, ask anyone in this room, last year January, Ram Mandir being inaugurated. Everybody thought that BJP will be 350, 400. Nobody gave the Congress a ghost of a chance. Or the opposition. And the opposition, didn't do too badly. They didn't do that well either. But, Mr. Modi was also brought down. So I think it surprised people. I think the Indian voter is remarkable. You cannot take him or her for a ride beyond a point. And I think this is the most diverse country in the world. So the election surprised maybe people like me, who had got carried away by the Modi ki guarantee. But down there, people, I mentioned the story in the book, this auto rickshaw driver in Ayodhya. I was there on the day Mr. Modi was holding a road show in May. And everywhere you looked, Ayodhya was looking beautiful, lovely spectacle. And everybody said, "Aayega to Modi," in the entire crowd. Till one auto rickshaw driver comes and tells me, "Sir, ये सब छोड़िए, आप मुझे मेरी बात सुनिए." And he gave me a complete reason why the BJP would not win in Ayodhya. And he was right. He explained how people had lost homes because of road widening. He explained to me the caste arithmetic of UP, because in UP everything starts with caste. So you say, इतने दलित है, इतने कुर्मी है, इतने हैं, वो कैंडिडेट ठाकुर है, उसके नंबर नहीं है. And this Avdesh Prasad, who won, 78-year-old, barely could walk, suddenly became a hero. Because, people in Ayodhya were angry. Actually were angry. People from outside Ayodhya were very happy with the Ram Mandir. People in Ayodhya felt like ये सब मंदिर बिंदिर ठीक है, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ रास्ते देखिए, हमारे घर तोड़े गए हैं, ये लोग सब पुजारी लोग हैं, ये पैसा बना रहे हैं, रियल एस्टेट डील कर रहे हैं, कोई होटेलियर आ रहा है. And then you realize there are voices other than the ones you see on TV. On TV you only see political voices, but the voices of people are very different. People have other issues that trouble them. Paper leaks is a huge. Every part of UP you go today, every young person will complain about how papers are being leaked, recruitment exams are postponed. These are the real issues. So I think some of those real issues came to the fore. And let's be clear, post-COVID, there has been a lot of suffering at the bottom of the pyramid. In fact, we don't recognize the extent of it. And now it's coming to light. Just look at where, some of the economic indicators, consumer demand has not picked up in the last 3 years. And people lost jobs. I mean, some of the figures of people losing jobs are pretty frightening. So I think this election woke India up, which is the way it should be, and woke the BJP up. The BJP is a very, very clever party. They course-corrected by Maharashtra. But in general, I think this election showed that India is a more complicated, it's complicated. India is not an easy country to understand. Sitting in a TV studio and saying, "Isko 400 milenge," some pollster coming and saying, 400 par hoga, aisa nahi hota hai.
So your auto rickshaw wala reminds me of this chapter that you had, Democracy Zinda Hai. Where you have also used the famous song, I think from Sita or Gita, Public hai ye sab janti hai.
No, from a film called Roti.
Acha, Roti, okay. Public hai ye sab janti hai. There are many nice stories that you've written in that. One is about Kishori Lal Sharma, who took on the might of someone like Smriti Irani, and when nobody really expected him to win, he swept the polls. So that means actually it's the voter the one who's the winner, right? Would you agree with me?
Look, there are two parts to it. I mean, that chapter has these 10 stories of hope, because I thought, let's not leave the viewer and the reader only with despair. These are 10 people whom nobody gave a chance, but who won in different ways. I mean, there is this young woman, Sanjana Jatta. She's a 26-year-old Dalit mother of two, has no money. Her husband is a constable in Bharatpur. Defeated the chief minister's candidate. Not easy. Ran her campaign through Instagram. She became an Instagram sensation. She knew how to use Instagram better than I would. And she was, every Dalit woman seemed to identify with her. Now, there is another guy, Rajkumar Roat. He's a 31-year-old tribal leader, biker. Goes on a bike with shirt showing New York in the middle of Baswada. Defeated a guy who had just switched from the Congress to the BJP, 6-time MLA, minister. You see, India में कुछ भी हो सकता है. This is in that sense. Look, there is a lot of money power. The darker side of politics is just how much money power today is there in politics. And that is there also reflected in the book. But the brighter side is, despite all of this, you never know where in India, who Kishori Lal Sharma, Smriti Irani called him a clerk of the Gandhis.
Yes.
And the clerk defeated a charismatic star. And Smriti Irani has worked in Amethi. I'm not saying she hasn't worked. But somewhere she was seen as arrogant. Indian voters do not like ahankar. Is my, they can see through ahankar in a strange way. The average person doesn't like you treating him like shit. And, she had made some comment about shakkar or something which people didn't like. But Kishori Lal was a clever guy. When I first met him, it was the first interview he was doing in his life, proper sit-down interview. So he did what Lalu did. The room had no background, it had only white walls. Suddenly he called his guy, Sonia Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi ka photo la. He went and put the photo behind. So he obviously knew which way his bread was buttered. But the fact was that his secret of his success, and this is a story which politicians will relate to, they have to go to everyone's birth. If there's a child birth, if a kid is born in your house, you have to go for the first birthday. You have to go for someone's death ceremony. You have to go for every marriage. Kishori Lal did that for 10 years. For 10 years he has been doing that in Amethi. So Smriti Irani lived in Delhi. She was doing work for the people. She was doing these big projects. But people knew Kishori Lal wo apna hi aadmi hai. All politicians will know that in particular. You see, if you want to do well in politics, you have to. That's why I said it's very tough. How many of us will go to everybody's birth anniversary, death, somebody's marriage ceremony? Politicians have to do that. So Kishori Lal's secret of his success was that he did that. And so these are, I call them stories of hope. Engineer Rashid, Kashmiri, jailed. He was in jail. He defeated Omar Abdullah, who was, at that time, sort of later. And then, look at it, 4 months later, election held in Kashmir, Omar Abdullah wins, and Engineer Rashid is out of jail and wins 0. Because the people said, when he was in jail, they said, Tihar ka badla vote se. They were angry. The moment he came out of jail, he lost sympathy. People said, now you have come, the government is using you. And it is true. Imagine a UAPA detainee is allowed to come out of jail to fight the Vidhan Sabha election. But Lok Sabha, you kept him in jail. When he was in jail, he won the election by 250,000. Moment he came out of jail, he got 0 seats.
So change are the ways of politics. Absolutely.
Now, moral of the story, stay in jail.
We have to talk about exit polls, right? When we talk about 2024, we cannot miss talking about exit polls. And there's a full chapter, of course, on that. And you've said it's time to exit polls. So, are they merely a media spectacle? Or, tell me, how did so many people get 2024 wrong? In fact, a well-known person like, Pradeep Gupta was actually reduced to tears on your show.
Yeah, I reduced him to tears. No, because you see, look, we have a 97 crore electorate. 97. I just heard the election commissioner today say it's gone up to 99 crores. It will go up to 100 crores within a year. That's a lot of people, right? Out of which 65, 66 crores are voting in a general election. The best of pollsters cannot have a sample of, maximum will have a sample of, even if he does 1,000 per constituency, which is a lot, will be 5 lakhs. That is, it's not easy, and people don't tell the truth anymore to you. I think that's what it is. People don't trust these pollsters. Somebody comes to your house and says, who you are voting for? In Bengal, for example, they live in fear. So they never will tell you. Even if they are voting against Mamata Banerjee, they won't tell you that. Similarly, in Tamil Nadu, they won't tell you that they are voting, who they are voting for. People don't trust, I think, politicians, and they don't trust pollsters. So there's a huge lie factor. Plus, many of these pollsters are just fly-by-night operators. They are taking money from the TV. I'm paying the pollster for coming on the channel and telling me something that could go wrong where I will be blamed. He's making his money. Many of them have, Pradeep was also contracted by the BJP. He was polling for the BJP and he's giving me this, he's a good guy. I think he's among the best of the pollsters. But somewhere down the line, if I'm polling for the BJP, and if Amit Shah is my client, What choice between Amit Shah and Rajdeep Sardesai? Who is he going to listen to? I mean, it's a, there is no way that he's going to say what Amit Shah doesn't want to hear.
But Yogendra Yadav got it right. What did he do, do you think?
No, Yogendra Yadav got it right for the general election. 4 months later, his home state of Haryana, I asked him, Yogendra ji, क्या हो रहा है? अरे कांग्रेस का साइक्लोन है, साइक्लोन नहीं तो सुनामी होगा. What happened? You see, the fact is, no one can predict an election. In Goa last time, could you predict who? Everybody said Kate ki takkar. When I came to Goa, everybody said hung assembly. Eventually, the BJP got a full majority. So I don't think anyone can predict an Indian election, and you should not predict. I think we should just go and talk to people, get a sense of what their issues are, without getting into numbers. I'm not a psephologist, so I should get into numbers. And that's the lesson I've learned. This is the most complicated country in the world. Think about it. This is the one country where in Maharashtra, the opposition gets 30 out of 48 seats in the Lok Sabha, and the government gets 17. 5 months later, Vidhan Sabha, opposition gets 50 seats and government gets 235. Same voter. I mean, I find it incredible. There is no other country in the world like this. In the US, once I vote for Republicans, I will vote for Republicans. I am Democrat, I vote for Democrats. In India, I am very different. I mean, every election is different. I mean, the same Arvind Kejriwal who was swept out in Delhi in the Lok Sabha may well win the Vidhan Sabha. So, who is this voter? What does he want? And, people say EVMs and all. You have to prove it. This is at the moment you're going to have to give me more. There is some reason to worry. No, there is some reason to worry. Maharashtra, they added 40 lakh new voters in 5 months. Now, where did these new voters come from? Is there a problem with electoral rolls? All of this should be looked at. But, I just think that it is all very, very complicated in India.
In fact, about EVMs, a lot of the countries now, the world, in fact, is moving towards ballot boxes, right now? I don't know, is it because EVMs can be tampered with or?
No, look, I think we should do one good. Look, our EVMs so far, our process is very robust. There is a lot of checks and balances in the way our systems are. However, if all these political parties feel so strongly, they should have a ballot box. My problem is when you lose, you blame EVM.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you win, you don't do it. Are you telling me Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, if they can control EVM, they would have got 400 par. India would have accepted 400 par.
Right.
When they get 240, nobody says EVMs. The moment they get 230 in Maharashtra, the opposition says the EVM hai. You see, they are going to have to prove to me more than just, saying, I think the real problem in India is not EVMs and all. The real problem is misuse of agencies, money power, media power. These are the issues that prevent Imagine just before the elections of 2024, 1 month before, Congress had its bank accounts frozen and they got an IT notice of 1993. I mean, that is where the problem lies. Look at the money power that one side has versus the other. Look at the media power. In America, Trump and Harris get equal time. It's not as if one person is given more time and one. In India, we don't do that. Whoever is in power, whichever party is in power, gets maximum time on TV. In state governments, they get the power. So I think that's where we need to look at. EVMs at the moment to be the red herring. There is no proof to suggest that EVMs are tampered with. None that I have seen.
We can keep talking to you and it's really, really illuminating listening to you. But we do have a time constraint and we also have the audience who would, I'm sure, be eager to ask some questions. But I cannot end this session since we have Sagarika in the house. I'm going to ask a slightly tricky question to you.
Sure.
So, as we know, Sagarika is a TNC MP from the Rajya Sabha MP from TNC, and you have a chapter in your book called Khela Hobe, if I pronounce it correctly. And I was just wondering, if you say something about Mamata Banerjee, or if you say something about the politics of Bengal, how do you navigate domestic peace with your professionalism?
Look, it's a great question, and it is a question that, look, I don't travel to Bengal, that's why I do TV. even when this RG car happened, which I would have liked to go and cover because simply of the conflict of interest that is there. When I'm writing a book, I was very clear. I'm going to write what I know, what I see, and people can judge it based on what they've said. I've reflected on how Mamata Banerjee won Bengal, but I've also reflected how she got 0 in Goa. And there is a little thing about my friend Rajdeep Sardesai also, who she was hoping to woo. They even exchanged saris, I believe. Where Vijay's wife gave a sari to Mamata Banerjee gave a sari to Vijay's wife, and Mamata Banerjee thought that was enough to woo Vijay. Obviously Vijay had other ideas, which is another story. But the fact is, look, she got 0 here, right? So that's there. She got it badly wrong. I mentioned how Prashant Kishore was sitting in the hotel just next to ours, trying to negotiate and get various people to join in. Didn't realize that Goa is very different to Bengal. Not just the fish, but everything else about Goa is very different. The choppy waters of Arabian Sea are nothing compared to what the waters of the Bay of Bengal are. But look, she's an independent person. She's entitled to her political views. Good luck to her. I may not agree with some of them, but I'm very clear. When I write in particular, I am going to write what I know, what I see, and let the viewer or reader judge if I have been unfair or fair to someone. I've tried to be as fair as possible to everyone in this book. In fact, to the point where people say, you see, today we don't want balance. Today we are supposed to take sides. I don't understand why I have to take a side. I will speak truth to power, whoever is in power. If tomorrow the Congress is in power, they've got to be spoken to. We really threw the Congress government to the wolves during Arvind Kejriwal's India against corruption. But that's life. But after seeing her in politics, I would never go anywhere close to politics. It is very, very difficult. Even more difficult for women, actually.
Thank you so much. It's really been interesting. And I'm sure there are a lot of other things in the book which I would have liked to touch upon, but we have a time constraint. So now I think we're going to open the floor to the audience. Please raise your hand and introduce yourselves. We'll give you a mic to speak. Thank you. Thank you, Rajdeep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me so patiently.
We will be taking only 3 questions because of the time crunch. So yes, we have the first speaker there.
Ajab Goa ki gajab kahani.
Rajdeep, what happened just before Maharashtra elections? I had a friend. He is a staunch anti-BJP person. He asked me, "What is wrong with your friend Rajdeep?" I said, "What happened?" "No, he's saying that Maharashtra BJP is winning." I said, that is because he has stood the whole state and that they feel he is getting. "No, but why he's saying that?" I said, "Why?" I said, problem is not with Rajdeep or any journalist. Problem is with you. That you want a journalist to say what you like. Is it that we are saying that media is changing? Is it only the media is changing or the reader and viewer is also changing in terms of media?
It's a very good question, Sandesh. Very good question. I'll answer. First of all, Maharashtra is the only election I got right in 2024. I went to Haryana and I was convinced that Congress is winning. Convinced. I have never been more. And I am telling you, it's the only election in all the 35 years I have done where I have met everybody else, including journalists, local, this, that, all of whom said Congress is winning. So that is the election which is a mystifying for me even today. But Maharashtra, I'll tell you, you're right. Where I think I got right, Maharashtra, I went to a cotton mill in Wardha, small little place, small little mill, where all the women who were working on the shop floor, all of them said, "Amala ladki bahinche paise मिळाले." आणि I asked them, "पण तुम्हाला काँग्रेस म्हणते 3,000 देतील, या लोकांनी 1,500 दिलेत." Immediately typical Indian way. नाही पण आमच्या पॉकेटमध्ये आले, ते नंतर देतील तेव्हा बघू. And I could sense in those women, and you could go across Maharashtra. Frankly, credit to the Shinde government. You could argue that it's not the right way to win an election. You're virtually bribing a voter. But in 3 months, they made sure the entire banking system was only doing one thing, giving 1,500 rupees to more than 2.5 crore women. It was a game changer per month. But you're right. I think the media today, and that I think society in general has got divided today between us and them. If I say something you don't like, I'm biased. right? So I may well praise Mr. Modi on certain aspects and people are too big gya. On the other hand, if I may tomorrow sort of say something good about Rahul Gandhi, people say, you're a Gandhi Darbari. How do you navigate this? It's become more and more difficult because we have got divided in WhatsApp groups. If I say something on my school WhatsApp group that somebody doesn't like, they are ready to walk out of the group. We have become more intolerant and we have become us versus them on every issue, which is why I say I don't even want to talk politics anymore on WhatsApp groups. How do you explain complex issues? So I think you're absolutely right. The media has got caught in that, has got tangled in it as a result. And the problem is the media is also responsible. We are taking very polarized positions. This country is about samvad, not about vivad. And that's the genius of India. That you can have a different view, I can have a different view, but we can talk to each other. Atal Bihari Vajpayee is a classic example of that. I mean, in all the years that I met him, we could, he was he was much older than me, but he seemed to take a fancy for me. But I always enjoyed going and meeting that man because he had the unique ability of listening to you, disagreeing with you, but never treating you as an enemy. Today our politicians, more and more of them, if they don't agree with what you say, they want to boycott you. And that goes to the public also. There will be people here who say, Rajdeep Darbari ahe, kiwa Godi media. That's why I said, I find all these terms reprehensible. We have become a name-calling society. So, that makes media's life even more difficult. So this friend of yours must have thought that I have, taken money from the BJP to say that they are winning Maharashtra. What do you do?
Hello, Raju. Can I say Raju?
Yes, sir.
I particularly I think what you have said is really quite sort of informative. It's not like what the nation wants to know. But what I want to know is this. Now, you have told the story which has been going on for so many years. I actually represent the Medical Association of Sydney, Australia. But I come here every year, and I think your first book, I had come here and I think seen you that time in the other place. Now, what I want to know now, what is the pulse you feel now? When I say pulse, not medically actually, but what do you think that what is going to happen? Because when I saw this, what happened in RG medical things, it, and then subsequent Supreme Court and all this thing, the way it is headed, I don't think it is the right thing to do. I don't know about it. So motor coming so fast.
Yeah.
And the fellow is, I personally feel, the action from the governor to the president had to go. Somebody completely misled them to a so motor things and the thing.
Look, the only way I'll answer you is I think we have become over politicized as a society. Even a rape, it's tragic what happened in RG Kar. Nobody wants a girl to be raped and murdered. It angers all of us. But the way it was played out, it was almost as if it was then used to try and bring down a chief minister. How is the chief minister responsible beyond a point? In fact, the Kolkata police deserves credit. They caught the right person on day one. And yet, the way the media made it gang rape. First the media said gang rape. And then that gang rape story, imagine the trauma of a family to be told gang rape with no proof. And social media has worsened it. You see, we are living in this age where everything is WhatsApp groups are making, how much of fake news, fake information goes out. So I think we are in very troubled times. I'll give you an example. The day before the Maharashtra election, Maharashtra voted, a WhatsApp group was sending out messages, Siddhi Vinayak temple, be careful. Siddhi Vinayak temple to be taken over by Waqf board. So my Maushi who lives in Pune rings me, अरे राजदीप तू बघितलंस का तुमच्या चॅनलवर का नाही आहे? म्हणा मॅडम कुठून नाही माझ्या व्हॉट्सॲप ग्रुपवर आहे. WhatsApp group cannot be the basis of news. But imagine the effect it is having. That must have gone to tens and thousands of people. Now, do we have an opportunity to process it, digest it? So we are going to go through very troubled time. Now, if, for example, this whole Mandir Masjid, people are going around. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has stepped in and given a stay. Otherwise, if across the country, tomorrow someone will say, God forbid, that under some church in Goa, there is a temple. No, they already said it. What? No, but what will you do? How? You see, because the Supreme Court has unleashed a certain Pandora's box. So, in a country like India, we have to be very careful managing these divisions. We have to bring out the best in Indians. We are bringing out the worst. This is a country which does not have a single university in the top 200. Not one. Right? China has dozens. This is a country where, as we saw during COVID, our health system is in shambles in some parts of the country. These are the real issues of our time. Nobody talks about them. We are talking about Hindu, Muslim. We are talking about going back in 400 years. Was there a temple here? That's not going to take India forward. I think somewhere we are going to have to realize that India can only be taken forward. The great countries of the world in the 21st century will be driven by education and the most educated countries. Because in the age of AI, age of tech, you're going to need top scientists. You're going to need people at the very cutting edge of scholarship. We don't have that. Look at all these colleges coming up, most of them capitation-free colleges. Terrible quality of teachers, terrible quality of education system. Nobody's bothered. Nobody wants to even environment. How many people really want a serious debate on climate change? And it's going to come. In the next 20 years, temperatures will rise. Rains will be more intense. We've seen it in Goa as well. God forbid, the Arabian Sea is getting more cyclonic conditions now than, or as many as the Bay of Bengal. Is Goa in a position to actually combat a cyclone if it hits this state? Who wants to talk about it? Do we have the tree cover there? I mean, nobody even wants, because there are no votes in trees. Trees don't vote, right? Ladki Bahin, you can pay 1,500 rupees and get away with it. The same amount of money you need to invest in education, in health. We don't have money. Maharashtra, 7.5 lakh crore debt and rising. I mean, every Indian state is dead. Now, if you are going to give women 2,000 rupees, 1,000 rupees to win an election, where is the money going to come for real infrastructure that you really need for the future? So I think that's sorry to give a long answer.
No, but are we going back to the 1990s?
No, I think we are going even further back at times.
Yeah.
Look, there are lots of Indias. This is a country with multiple. There is also an aspirational India that will break every door to make sure that children get a better life than they are. We are the greatest country in the world for that reason. We are more aspirational than America was in its pomp 100 years ago. So you also have to sort of celebrate that. I hate to see India only as a glass half empty. We are also a glass half full. And, I think we have to look at both. The problem is we don't want to look at both. Somebody only wants to say, sab kuch achhe din hai. Somebody wants to say, sab kuch bure din hai. Kuch bura bhi hai, kuch acha bhi hai. But we need to discuss it. We need to not do black and white, we don't need to look at this great country as black and white.
Thank you very much.
Prabhu,
Hi.
you've covered that 202 Gujarat very extensively. So an insight, was it a genocide or a riot?
It was no genocide. The genocide was, if there is a word, which is a word we should use very carefully, if there is anything remotely like a genocide we have seen in the last 40 years in this country, it was 1984 anti-Sikh riots.
Correct.
And I call it a genocide.
Correct.
People ask me, why didn't you cover it? I said I was an 18-year-old in St. Xavier's, Mumbai. But I'll tell you, I live in an area where there are a number of Sikh families and they come in our park. One of them is a case that I will never forget. He lost his family members during partition. He's an old man. Family came, rebuilt their lives by coming to Delhi. He had a shop not far away from where we live. His shop was also destroyed. And that day when I listened to him and he told me what had happened in 84, I had tears in my eyes and I said, sir, sorry. What else will you say? So I don't think I think 84 was clearly Sikhs were butchered in Delhi. Right? And that is a genocide. 2002 was a riot. But, meaning Hindus died, Muslims died. But I am not going to get into a scorecard. Ki itne Hindu mare, itne Muslim mare. That is the tragedy.
No, but...
See, we reduce even serious things to scorecard. I've heard this. How can you say only Muslims died? Hindus also died. Yes, they died. But nobody should, whether Hindu or Muslim. It is unacceptable. right? And my grandfather was a police officer, and he told me something which stayed in my mind. No riot takes place unless there is incompetence or complicity or both of the police, meaning the state government. If the government tells a police officer, no way will you allow a riot to take place, they can stop a riot in 1 hour, if they want.
Mr. Modi was a few months into his CMship, so was he in control?
No, he wasn't. But that is no excuse. You see, the problem is we have now used it to make, look, you see, this is what we have done is, we have made all of this. Rajiv Gandhi was also only a few months. Rajiv Gandhi had barely, I think, not even taken over, I think, on the day when Delhi started burning. That does not mean that Rajiv Gandhi should be excused for what happened in Delhi. He could have stopped it. You're the Prime Minister, you're the Chief Minister. Whether you are 1 month into power or 1 year into power, you can stop it. That is the truth of the matter. See, I mean, a lot of criticism of West Bengal under Jyoti Basu for destroying industry. But the one thing is, during Jyoti Basu's time in those 20 years, even during Ayodhya, he did not allow violence of riots to take place between Hindus and Muslims. And I think it requires, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. And you're right, control was with VHP, not with Mr. Modi. Praveen Togadia was the main. But that is not an excuse anymore. I mean, when I see that Sikh man cry, telling me his story, I mean, why should he suffer? Why should anyone suffer? And remember, in Delhi, not just the Congress, there were people from different political affiliations, all sort of RSS, well, I don't want to say it here, but that is true, that they were all involved. I mean, it's documented. What do you do? I'll just end by saying, she asked me, what was the most difficult thing? The most difficult period for me as a journalist, frankly, was Mumbai 92-93. We wrote a book called When Bombay Burned. Nobody read it because nobody knew us. But it's a book which I have a lot of pride in because a lot of reporters got together to tell the story. And it's a city that I was in love with. And actually it was like a love affair which was badly ruptured by those riots and the blasts. But people got away. More than 1,500 people died. 25 were prosecuted and convicted. Imagine, 1,500 people are dead. Only 25 prosecuted and convicted. Same thing, Delhi. 3,000 Sikhs died. How many convicted? 40, maybe 30. I mean, what kind of system is that? That doesn't allow prosecution in these cases of mass violence. No, hopefully now people, hopefully it will never happen again. I mean, you have to only pray that it never happens again. You don't want to see riots killing innocent, because innocents die. That's the truth. Anyway. No, I said it in that in a podcast with Samdesh that my respect for Sunil Gavaskar is not the 34 centuries he scored. For us, he was an idol on the cricket field. But when Sunil Gavaskar came down from his house to prevent a mob attacking a couple because they belonged to a different religion and stood his ground there, I said hats off to anybody. Hats off, for every person who may trigger a riot. There are lots of Indians who still feel a sense of, I saw it in Delhi recently, 4 years ago also, in northeast Delhi, when riots took place. I mean, there were people who came out of their house to attack their neighbors, but there were equally people who came to protect their neighbors. I mean, not everybody is a villain in this, and not everybody is a villain. So,
your own grandmother, I think, looked after a lot of people, right, in Gujarat?
No, my grandmother lived in, she lived in a building with, where there were majority Muslims. And because she was her husband had passed away, but he was an IG of police, she rang up the commissioner and said, if anyone comes here and your police is not seen, I will ensure that you are removed as police commissioner. Now, I think the ordinary Indian has a lot of bravery. Let us not underestimate the power. There are lots of good people. Most people are good. Most people still do not want hate. But as Bajrangi Bhaijan ka ek dialogue hai, nafrat phailana aasan hai, pyar baantna mushkil. And it's very easy to trigger hate. It's not so easy to spread love. That's my sort of one-liner for the day.
Thank you so much, Rajdeep. Over to you, Shruti.
She's been asking.
Yes.
Yeah, why hasn't? So my only only thing is, don't you think that in all newsrooms, the anchors, you need to, I mean, shouldn't you even be talking about ethics and morality in politics and picking that up? I mean, we come from a civilization, and even, in fact, Hinduism, which promotes bhaichara, honesty, morality, looking out for your neighbor, loving your neighbor. Why is that not becoming an issue in the newsrooms? Why is everybody accepting anyone who's aggressive, anyone who's done anything wrong, and everybody is excusing it?
No,
Nobody's pointing your finger and say, how have you allowed this to happen?
Ma'am, why blame? Voters are electing politicians with criminal records. Voters
but
are
at least you should ask, no? I mean, people. Everybody should be at least asking that: is this ethical? Is this moral? What are you doing to society?
Let me tell you, ma'am. Today, Mahatma Gandhi contested election. He may lose his deposit.
Pause. Definitely he would.
The truth of the matter is, Gandhi would probably say,
This is Gandhi's India, but it's now become Gundas India. Mafia and Gundas. Illiterate, and that too completely evil.
No, ma'am, see, as I said, being in politics is not easy. You see, all these words you are using are very strong words. They may be to some extent not untrue. I am not trying to say everybody is a saint or sadhu. But please understand, politics is Donald Trump some epitome of ethical behavior?
No, but we can't about
I'm just saying, America also has voted for someone who's been convicted of serious crimes. So we live in a world where perhaps the reason why we elect someone or choose our leaders has nothing to do. We are not in some moral science lesson. Politics is not a moral science lesson.
But it should be.
It has never been.
It's for the people. It's for the people. Come on.
So
it has to be. We have to insist on that.
Ma'am, some of the most corrupt politicians are.
Please call me Anu.
Anu, some of the most corrupt politicians are also some of the most effective political leaders. They are some. I mean, I have seen politicians. I hate to sort of sit on judgment and say that they are all evil. Maybe they are in a very different world where you have to make compromises. You cannot live life. I wish politics could be purer. We all wish. Mahatma Gandhi was remarkable. But I seriously mean it. Mahatma Gandhi today would find it very difficult to contest an election. Because he would say, I refuse to sort of have any vote bank politics. I'm not going to buy a vote. I'm not going to make false promises. But, politics has changed. I mean, Manmohan Singh was God's good man, contested one election, lost. The only election that Manmohan Singh contested, lost. What do I say about Delhi's voters then? Do I not blame them at one level? Nandan Nilekani, head of Infosys, contested one election from South Bangalore, lost by the highest margin of any Bangalore candidate in that election.
80% of people are illiterate for.
Now, ma'am, that debate we can have whether.
That's.
Madam, I cannot get into this debate. I'm just giving you examples.
Yes. Thank you so much. It has. Yes. Well, I'm sure everyone sitting here today will agree that we could have gone for much longer and nobody would want to get up, but it's the format of the event for which we need to get up. And before we wrap up, I would just want to quote in food terms that, we live in a country where we talk salads, but we eat samosas. So it is indeed a very difficult place to live in. Forget about politics. Let's not even get into that right now. So I, Shruti Juwarkar, would like to thank all of you today for taking out your precious time and being a part of this event. And special thanks to Mr. Rajdeep for enlightening us with such beautiful content that he has spoken about today, and we are looking forward to read his book as well. And thanks a lot, Vaishali. Your questions made all the difference as well. We could hear some insights which we have not seen on the TV or anywhere else. So it really makes a huge difference. On the due to the time crunch is that what we have to leave, but I would also like to thank Mrs. Sagarika Ghosh for joining us today. It is really an honor that you joined us, and thanks once again to our esteemed guests. It's your support and love that keeps us going, and it keeps us geared up for the events like these. Prabha Khaitan Foundation promotes cross-cultural state understanding, and as a part of this understanding, we are pleased to felicitate Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai with a giveaway made of beautiful dokra. Dokra is a non-ferrous metal. Owing its name to the Dokra Domar tribe of West Bengal, the ancient bell metal craft is practiced in West Bengal. I would now like to call upon Mr. Ranjit Phillipose, the Senior Vice President Operations Goa for IHCL Group, to felicitate Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai. Thank you once again, Mr. Rajdeep, and we hope you get the feature of a hero without going to a jail or even and yes, and
If I go to jail, then I'll come back and contest an election in Goa.
oh please, that at least I think Mrs. Anu would be very happy if that happens. Yes, yeah. Okay. Well, the relationship is like I love you like I hate you sorts. Yes. Yes, okay. So before you all leave today, I have a humble request that Mr. Rajdeep would be signing a copy of the book that he has written. Thank you so much once again.